All right, we're going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. It is 5:30 p.m., or roughly 5:30 p.m. Special called council meeting. Today is June 2nd, 2025. We're in City Council Chambers, 405 Municipal Drive, Kennedale, Texas, 76060. Madam Secretary, may I get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mayor Pro Tem Michaels.
Here.
Place 1 Glover.
Present.
Place 2 Kobeck. Here. Place 4 Gary.
Here.
Place 5 Navarez.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. At this time, we're going to do our invocation and pledges. I'm going to ask Councilman Navarez to lead us in our invocation, Councilman Michaels to lead us in our pledges. Our raucous audience, if you'll please stand with us. Thank you, gentlemen. And for the record, we will have our public comment time. The City of Kennedale City Council welcomes comments from the public. Those wishing to speak must sign in prior to the start of the meeting. Speakers may speak on any topic, whether on the agenda or not. The Kennedale City Council cannot act upon, discuss, issue raised, or make any decisions at this time. Speakers under citizens' comments shall observe a 3-minute time limit. Inquiries regarding matters not listed on this agenda may be referred to staff for research and/or possible future action by the board. Madam Secretary, for the record, anyone wishing to speak? And I'm guessing that's a no. Anybody?
That's a no.
Public comment? No? You good? All right. So, excuse me. At this time, we're going to move into our workshop, budget workshop for the City of Kennedale fiscal year 2025-2026 budget. Mr. Horton, I believe the mic is yours.
Thank you. Okay, I'll start off. Oh, I'll wait. Excuse me. Right, I'm going to start off with the administration department. This is a new department structurally, in that we're going to take 3 departments and then pull them into one under the title administration. On our current budget, that consists of the city manager's office, the city secretary's department, and human resources. There really only, well, there's 2 asks, one major one for public information software. The vendor that was picked, and I'll probably mispronounce this, Just FOIA. The anticipated cost is an annual cost of $10,315. This is to address both the complexity and the increase in public records requests we've received over the last year. Moving on, the next topic I'm going to discuss is citywide. It's positional budgeting for the city, and there are 2 programs to discuss. The first program is citywide incentive pay, and this is based on education and certifications. Public safety already has a system in place. This would mirror that system, having 3 levels: intermediate, advanced, and master levels. The criteria would be established at the department level with the idea that it would be equitable across departments. Our per employee cap currently is $32.50, $125 a pay period. We would keep that. The anticipated cost based on our April 18th payroll would be $184,098. That is including the increase to FICA and TMRS. Next program is a step plan for our civilian staff. Again, this is mirroring public safety. So we would have 4 levels of staff without supervisor responsibility. So A is admin, PW is public works. 1, 2, 3, and 4. The next level is a supervisory level. That's S1, like Sierra 1. You can see the hourly rates there. We have 27 total eligible employees. Again, this is based on the April 18th payroll. So 27 eligible employees. You can see the salary increase, FICA, TMRS. The total cost is $149,533, and that's an increase on the current pay level, not comparing to any other type of pay increase. Final piece I'll discuss is the finance department, which of course my biased opinion is that it's the best department here. Our current structure, we have 3.75 FTE. There's the director, a senior accounting associate, and 2 accounting associate 2s. I'm proposing a change for FY26 that would add a grant specialist, capital project accountant, and would also make our part-time position, that's 0.75, be a full-time position, so 1.25 FTE total. One thing I do wish to point out with the grant specialist, same as last year, this position is meant to cover its own cost in grant revenue. But what I'd like to point out is the revenue that's generated from grants will not go into the general fund. It goes into a separate fund for grants. So while there is an expectation to cover the wage, it won't be directly into the same fund. Real quick, I just want to touch on a 5-year plan, Department of the Future. There's an idea floating around about moving purchasing within the finance department. To accommodate that, we would have a purchasing coordinator and a buyer position. We would also have a finance manager that's looking more at day-to-day work, whereas the director's looking more at future planning, staff development, and HR-related items, also the budget, and then the possibility of having a paid internship program. Have a detail of the positions in the packet. The promotion pathway, I mentioned having purchasing, so we would essentially have 3 vertical paths that would merge at the finance manager role. So to go back to what am I asking for FY26 in the finance department, increase of FTE of 1.25, estimated cost, we'll call it $151,000, wages, retirements, medical benefit, office equipment, we would need a new laptop, monitors, desk, chair, et cetera. Total additional cost of $154,879 in comparison with the FY25 budget. I'll stand for questions on any of those departments before turning it over to Chief Holguin.
So John, if we don't hire the grant writer, you won't need as much in the additional cost for equipment as well, because some of that's tied up into that position? Mm-hmm. And then I had a question about the intern, and I'm fine with paid internship. Why not explore that? Because you had that for future, I'm assuming not for this budget season, but for a future budget season. Why not start there instead of working from the top down, but bottom up?
Where with the interns, they would be reporting directly to the director, but that doesn't mean that they would be doing director level tasks. That's just because the director position is designed to handle all of the career development. It's not really appropriate to have that with a finance manager because that position would be tasked on running day-to-day operations. And I wouldn't want to have an intern, quote, reporting to somebody who's at a staff level.
So you're saying the weak link right now is having management versus having workers for you?
The weak link in the future, if the finance department does take on purchasing, would be that day-to-day management. If we're adding staff, and the purchasing is a totally different task from what we're doing now. So at that level, we would need a manager to look more at day-to-day. The weakness, I hate to say weakness, but the opportunity that I see right now is the day-to-day staff. That's why I'm asking to make a full, or the part-time to full-time. There is a gap in completing work where we're looking more at like a project rotation Whereas some of these just need to be done on a consistent basis month to month. And we're not doing that on certain tasks, and we're rotating them throughout the months. But ideally, we would have information caught up within 15 days of month close. And right now, that's not the case. So that's the part-time to full-time, that's that. The grant specialist is just looking at, as we mentioned before, looking at some infrastructure needs and park equipment and that type, having somebody in-house that can manage those applications. As a benefit of having someone that would be looking at capital projects anyway, it's a good possibility to move our capital project accounting and our tracking to that person, since they would already be intimately involved. It's just a natural step.
So just to be clear, you're at a point, or we are at fine tune what we're doing.
I feel that we are, yes.
All right, thank you, John.
So just to add my comment, so last year when we dropped the grant writer position from the budget, my comment up here was we were picking up pennies when dollar bills were flying by, and I still feel that way. We desperately need a grant writer to help get some of those grants that are floating around out there. Our town and our budget is small enough that that's a position I agree will pay for itself over the years very quickly. Even with the right size grant, it can pay for itself in the first grant it brings in. So I fully support having the grant writer funded.
Looking where we were putting that on that grid, I mentioned the step plan grid, so where we have that position on that grid and considering what our current benefit cost is, $100,000 would cover that position, which to your point, one infrastructure grant, and they've already cleared that.
And just to kind of, as a point of comparison, I think, Mr. City Manager, keep me honest, if we were to farm out or outsource grant writing, is it a percentage? So they would keep a percentage of the grant, which is probably going to be more than whatever the salary is, even on one infrastructure grant. So again, it just makes sense.
And with that, I mentioned the capital project accounting, so we would have somebody that when there's downtime, there's other tasks they could be doing as well. So it would be increasing the FTE to the city and our work capacity.
Well, we've discussed in the past too, just providing more visibility into kind of where the budgets are at with some of the infrastructure projects. Not that there's anything not visible, but just provide more detail around some of those things on the Public Works website and street website in particular. So, thank you, John.
Yes, sir.
Hey, John, just to follow up on that grant writer, I can't imagine there's like a lot of pull out there, like unemployed grant writers. Is this like a thing? Like people go to school for this, or is just 20 years at Arlington doing it is what we're looking for?
There are some avenues for training, but experience would be key on this, because each type of grant, now, honestly, I'm speaking from medical grants. I did work in that field for a while, but with those, there's so many variables. So depending on if you're writing a grant to the NIH, or if you're writing a grant to a pharmaceutical company, the standards are different. Mm-hmm. So you may not be able to use the same person to write both of those grants because the standards and the expectations are so different. So ideally, we would find somebody that's trained and knowledgeable in a specific field that we could, I hate to say take advantage of, but we could use those skills to our advantage.
So we need a specialist of a specialist, basically.
To start off, yeah, because we don't have anybody here that could train that person.
Yeah.
For example, so we would need to have someone who's highly proficient right off.
We're not just looking for any grant writer because, as you said, medical is different from maybe government. Mm-hmm. So we want somebody specifically with at least city, if not county or state. Mm-hmm.
We would need somebody with experience writing to the entities that we're looking to get money from.
And then that 99,000, is that just to entice that specialty, or is that like an average?
Well, that's including benefits. So I do want to point that out. That's TMRS, that's FICA, that's an estimation of what medical benefits would be. Comparing it to job listings that were on the TML website, that's in tune with what people were hiring or listing positions at.
Okay.
I can't say hiring, I can't say for certainty they were hired, but doing a search for that title, that's in the ballpark.
It's ballpark. Okay, thank you.
The other thing on looking at our grid, and when we have different, call it standards for different steps on that grid, that the specialty that would be required would put them in that A4 position or in that A4 slot.
And if we pick up the step plan, that'll fall in line with that as well? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes, and as you go through, everyone who is requesting new staff, it's done based on, if it's civilian staff, it's done based on this proposed step plan for civilians. Public safety is based on the current step plan for them.
And since I opened my mouth about it, let's just talk a little bit more about the step plan. I'm, absolutely for this, but why don't you kind of rush through it? Can you give a little bit more depth to it of why it's necessary for us at this point?
It really evolved out of a project from job leveling, trying to see what each positions in each department, how they compare. So we started off with that as a goal. So how a position in public works compares to library, compares to finance across the non-public safety departments. From that, it made sense if we're going to standardize certain things. So we had the incentive plan that we've been talking about for at least 2 years. It's based on public safety. This grid, conceptually it's based on public safety, with the caveat that we found that where the positions sit on here first, did some research based on where the pay lands, and came up with the grid. So this wasn't a quick answer. This definitely was a few months worth of work that went into it, which looks kind of silly when it's on one slide. But yeah, it was mainly based on job leveling and then what people are paid now, what the expectations for the role are.
Okay, thank you. That's a numbers point of view. What about you, Daryl? What's from an administrative point of view, why is that so important right now?
Well, I think for one, we need to be fair to all employees. If it's important for our public safety, it should be important for all personnel, not just for one department. So I think that's one. We need to give value to all. And also, it is a standard. It's throughout the whole Metroplex. This is nothing new. It's something that we're just implementing. And more importantly, the employee or the new employee that's coming in will know where they're going, what you're starting with and where you can end at. So I think it's important also so they know and they're willing to invest in us, and we're showing them up front this is what we're willing and capable of doing. So they know up front, and that's very important for that, and it's an easy sell for us.
There's a similar concept in other organizations where there are pay bands. This is our version of that system.
Okay, it also give us guidance on when we shift positions within the organization or double up sometimes.
Yeah, as we grow.
Prevent something like that.
Yeah, we want the employee to grow with us, and this gives that opportunity for them to do so. Okay. If they move into supervisory position or management position, they know where they're going, and there's no guessing of what that is. Currently and in the past and currently, it's always based off of what's available, whatever that may be. There for a while, the city went 6 years without literally anything whatsoever. Mm-hmm. This helps us plan ahead for the next 5, 10 years, whatever that is. We're always a step ahead. We've always been on the backside. We're always trying to catch up. If we're planning and we put it out there and we're able to budget for that, we're prepared for it. And the employees know that as well. And that's a very strong position for us to be in, is to let the people know, hey, this is where we're going. We're thinking ahead.
All right, thank you.
John, is now a good time to talk about the revenue deck or the revenue page, or do you want to save that for later?
We'll do what we can.
Yeah.
The numbers are not in yet. That's the reason why we really didn't put a whole lot of emphasis on there. Okay. But it'll be based off our current budget. But yeah, John can expand on it.
Well, I just noticed that like property taxes, that was just a straight 3% bump. And I'm curious, do we still feel confident that we'll get 3% difference?
Between 2 and 3.
Okay. And then the rest of the numbers all seem flat.
There's so many factors that go to that question. It's difficult to answer. The comptroller hasn't released the truth in taxation calculation form for this tax year yet. They won't, hopefully this week, but we don't have it to go by now. We have preliminary estimates from the appraisal district, but since I've been here, they're pretty significant swings from the April and May estimates to that certified roll in July. So I hate to say they're unreliable. The 3% was based on a historical factor with a bit of rounding.
Okay. All right, we'll leave that for now then.
Next month, we'll have a lot more better numbers for you on revenue side.
Yeah, the hang up right now is the truth in taxation sheet, that not being out, that's a really big hindrance to us because we haven't seen what our no new revenue rate is, for example. We don't know any of the rates. The rates are what's going to drive that number. Without being able to confidently calculate that, I can only go on historical, what we've actually received in the past. And 3% was a reasonable landing point. One last thing I'll point out why I'm up here. If you see blue on the sheet, that's just because there's a formula. That's all that means. It's not meant to highlight the number at all. So that means there's a formula in the background, and that tells the finance staff not to change that. Whenever we're ready, further along on the process, we'll make all the font the same color.
Good afternoon. So I'm here to obviously ask for the police department stuff, but I do have the ask for the library as well, since I'm the IT director in addition to police department chief. So I'll start off with, does this thing scroll or how's this work? It's a PowerPoint. A lot of this information I've presented in the past in our annual report. Any questions at the end you'd like to ask about this? We are doing really well as far as crime in our city. 37.8% drop in crime in 3 years is pretty significant, especially in the DFW area. We're not out here by ourselves. We're surrounded by larger communities that are increasing, so that's kind of a significant statistic for us. And then we did a lot of really great stuff this past year that I already highlighted. So let's get to the police department ask section here. So I am asking for 2 police officers. The total budgetary impact, which includes the salaries plus benefits for 2 police officers, if we hire them, bring them in at $71,000, it's going to be the number that you see on the screen, $198,279. There's a multitude of different reasons why I'm asking for 2 more officers. Number one, to further improve our coverage on the shifts. My vision of the 2 additional officers would be to create what we call a power shift from 12 to 8. 12 to 8 is typically when we have the most calls for service. We have a lot more report calls. These officers could also help alleviate some of the overtime from the day shift officers that eventually catch that late call and have to work into night shift hours that night shift can't pick up because they're answering calls when they're getting on duty. So that would, because our shifts are from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., this would be the go-between of both those shifts. Also, it would give us the opportunity that in the event of a critical incident, we already have 2 officers on duty, and we don't have to call people in, because that does happen on occasion. Doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. We're looking at increased growth in the city. Again, we've done just a tremendous job changing our policing strategy. We practice a geographic and community-based policing model. It's been very effective, obviously, the 37% decrease in crime, and overall crime and decreases in calls for service. However, as our neighbors continue to grow, as we continue to also grow within our city and attract more business, more development, that's naturally going to increase the calls for service and police service needs. Also, one of the first things that I did when I came in as a captain is kind of evaluated where we are on investigations. Right now, we have one detective for the department. We do have a backup in case he needs help. But that one detective, thankfully, is a very talented individual, and so he's able to handle the caseload, major case crimes for the city. At some point, we will have to backfill one of those detective positions so that we actually will have two police detectives in the department again. That is kind of one of those additional future considerations for looking at increasing police staffing. The next ask is a new police captain. I asked about this last year. This was something that, again, I had, tried to highlight the need for this position. And bottom line, it's not necessarily that we have to have a true captain. I would be happy with a lieutenant or just another person to help us on the administrative side. Captain Carlson and myself, we put in the hours and put in the time, but we are growing, and we do have quite many more different types of programs than we ever had in the past. The needs are continuing to grow within the city. We're trying as a department to continue to grow with those needs. One of the things that's often, I guess, it's difficult to see is that we're beyond just the operational aspects of a police department. We're trying to be a full-service, full-fledged police agency, which includes community engagement, investigations, and of course, we still run animal control. So with the increased expectations of our community, of course, we need additional people to help run those activities and or at least provide some relief from the operational side. The operational side can be quite cumbersome. I was covering for Captain Carlson on Saturday. He was out of town, and I got no less than 4 phone calls at the house. So that kind of gives you an idea of how our world is, and he gets a lot more typically than I do. So when we're asking for help, it's because we truly, absolutely need it. I pointed out last year that we identified 77 tasks that Captain Carlson is actually personally responsible for. That does not include the tasks that I'm responsible for as the other side of the administrative, partnership between he and I. The total budgetary ask for a captain would be $151,980, which includes benefits and pay and the pay compensation. I'm also asking for a replacement vehicle. We've been able to replace 6 since, 22. We're still trying to get rid of some of the older vehicles in the fleet, cycle them out, auction them off. Right now, we have a loaner that we've given to the fire department. I know the city manager expressed a desire to have kind of a pool vehicle here at City Hall for city employees in events, whatever we might need. So giving one up completely and then replacing it with a new vehicle is our ask this year. This would be a fully outfitted vehicle for $77,000. And the last thing, putting on my IT cap. This is the camera system for the library. If you've not had a chance to go to the library, it's looking amazing. But when it looks amazing, it's going to attract a lot more people. It already attracts a lot more people than it has in the past. As security concerns will increase the more that we have participants for all the activities that we host, which are outstanding and fantastic. But having some additional coverage within the library is really important because the library is much more expansive than it has been in the past. So The ask is for, it's actually 11 new cameras, and it came out to $8,500. The slide is not correct. The cameras do have a 30-day recording holding, and they're through one of our current vendors right now that's helping us set up cameras, that has helped us set up cameras and security systems in the city, which is my preference as the person that's been in charge of that. They have really good customer service, and they've been doing some great work here for the city for us. So that's 11. It's 11 cameras. Oh, Michael's Keys. And they are on buy board, I'm sorry, the interlocal purchasing system contract. They do have two separate numbers for that. The total asking price is $8,432.70. And that's all I've got.
I like to go first, Mike. All right, let's back up a little bit to your workers. You wanted 2 new police officers. Have you filled all your spots yet? So there's 2 more on top of the 1 you're missing or whatever right now?
Correct.
Okay.
This would increase our sworn staff to 24.
Okay. And then, how many days or nights do we have only 2 out there on the streets? Sundays, I know, that's very old
Oh,
around here.
it also depends on training, vacation, sick leave.
Just a normal week.
On a normal week, how many people do we have? Just 2 on the street?
Which days or nights do you have two on staff, basically? 2 police officers? You said you had, on the nights where you have 2 police officers, it's good to have a third.
At 2 is our minimum right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we have a third person on there, that's, again, optimal for us at this point.
So you don't have a normal day, like every Sunday night there's only 2? That's how it used to be around here.
Well, we try not to do that. They'll probably end up doing that here in the near future. I've got to bring Button back to day shift for a while to get on the community engagement stuff, but he's been actually helping us on nights. And then a patrol officer that we just finished with field training, he will go to the other shift, so the other shift will be full. So the anticipation is once we get some of our community engagement items lined out, then Officer Button will probably go back to nights to help them out again.
Yeah, I'm sure he's tired of me teasing him about that. Okay, and then you said like the 2 new officers would be like what, like a noon to midnight? Like there's in the overlap of the 7 to 7s, or they're just going to be the day shift, night shift, just an extra?
The vision would be to run a power shift, so like a 12 to 8.
Okay.
And so that way they're touching both shifts, and if they need to stay, they're already here. Typically, if they're already scheduled to work, we can pull them in for an hour or 2 early if needed, if we have a critical incident. But they would actually be that power shift type of situation. And also, we try to do make sure that we have the ancillary staff to cover different shifts. They can also fill in on those other shifts when necessary if someone's out for an extended leave, for instance.
And these would be experienced officers, not rookies?
That'd be the best officers we could find and put in those positions.
On the vehicle side, and a little bit about the captain, I guess, if we hired a captain, do we need a vehicle for him if this one's the replacement? Or do we not need a vehicle if we didn't hire a captain? Like, I guess that math ain't mathing for me.
The wants are for the patrol vehicles, because they're the ones that get the hardest use, of course.
Of course.
We're not going to look a gift horse in the mouth and ask for another vehicle. We're going to make do with what we got. We'll find one of the best of the older vehicles to make that work for the new captain or the other position that if they need a vehicle.
Okay, so the new ones is for?
It's patrol.
Oh,
Yes.
patrol officers, okay. And then on the cameras, Mr. IT man, this will integrate with your current system of the cameras, like the one outside? over
Yes,
here?
sir.
So it's like one screen?
Right. The cameras that Michael's has already installed at City Hall, these would be in the same platform, which is again something that I want. We're not having 2 or 3 different software platforms on the phone or at our desktops.
Okay. And then so obviously this is not cloud-based, this would be recorded here with our IT equipment.
No, it'll be just like City Hall's cameras.
Okay, so that is cloud-based?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. And then, on a side note, with the jail being ripped out and you're doing the renovations over there, you don't need anything new on the budget to transfer the current IT systems over to a new closet and not leaving it up in the attic? That's already paid for?
That was actually part of the remodel cost,
Okay, all right. All right, thanks, Chief.
sir.
Chief, how many Tahoes do we still have to replace? I'm kind of counting 5. I think there's 3 patrol ones plus the one that own to the fire department, and then yours, correct?
In terms of total Tahoes, we have one that's ready for auction. It's a 2014. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plus mine, so 7. And then one's on loan to the fire department. 2 are unmarked detective units. And the other, so we have basically 3 on reserve, or they're still marked. So we'll deploy those out, for field force multipliers occasionally. But we'd like to, again, just eventually, we're going to get rid of all of them. The mileage is very high. Their engine hours, of course, are very high. And that's just the reason why we're trying to every year ask for a new Ford to get rid of one of those Tahoes.
Notice in the past that we used to do 2, and then last year we did 1, and then this year we're doing 1 again. So that's the reason I was just asking to see when we can get rid of the old ones and actually have a deal to where we can start getting into a system where we can start rotating them as they age and stuff like that. One more question on the library camera system. Is that coming out of the police department's budget, or is that going to come out of the library's budget?
No, sir, that is a library expenditure.
Okay.
Get to
'cause
talk about it.
It's in your presentation, and it's going to be, I guess, in the library's presentation. I was just wanting to see where the money's actually coming from.
Chief, I just had one question for you. For the 2 new officers, you mentioned that they would cover some existing overtime charges. Based on the budget impact, do you see or foresee any overtime savings against the 198 budget impact? So would you estimate they might save $50,000 in unbudgeted overtime throughout the year? Just trying to think of, is there a way that number comes down a little bit?
I've not done the math, but yes, it would obviously impact overtime because we do have the additional bodies on the street around the field, taking those late calls. That's another reason I'm a fan of a power shift. Power shift's not a new concept in policing, but what it really helps with, especially, is those late calls. So let's say the day shift officers get dispatched to something around 6:30. You have a power shift officer that can take that call, and it would then mitigate that overtime that they would have earned taking that call and then having to work it past the 7 p.m. mark, for instance.
Okay. For the next packet, maybe we just throw a number in there, potential savings in overtime, whatever that might look like. Perfect. Thank you.
Well, thank you all.
All the way down. Yeah.
It's amazing. All right, good evening, Mayor, City Council members. I'm pleased to present our plan for this year's coming budget, and just briefly want to talk about where we currently are with the fire department. And you know that I don't want to be too redundant on what the annual report presented, but we're currently at 15 firefighters, firefighter paramedics, and we run 3 shifts. So there's a minimum of 5 per shift, and we staff an engine and an ambulance with those 5. We currently have 3 vacancies that we've been trying to fill for our department. And they work a 48-96 work schedule. So again, 3 shifts that they're on duty 24/7, providing EMS, ambulance transport, and fire protection. So we provide this protection to the citizens and the public that comes through, visitors to our city. So our job is to protect life and property, and we do this through our training and fire safety programs that we have within the city. And just to highlight some of the items that we did this current budget year, we do have a fully staffed fire administration, so I'm happy to report that. But we are working on keeping our professional and dedicated fire department staff and increasing those 3 vacancies, which will replace those vacancies so we can look at reducing the overtime costs that we have. And of course, our fire inspections are on the increase. He's been doing a good job on that, on covering the business inspections. And we've been doing a little more training than usual, so I can tell you that the department's happy about that. I'm happy that we're getting a lot more fire training under our belt. We've been working with the construction company that is doing all the freeway construction around us, because they are close enough that we would be, if an incident happened, we'd be assisting Arlington with whatever type of incident that happens with that company. And of course, our project of the station remodel reconstruction is in progress. Be happy to show you what the station looks like. It's completely gutted, so it's pretty interesting. And our site at the temporary location is going pretty well as well. So some of our goals with this current budget is just to keep progress going, keep our supplies replenished. Call volume is staying about the same as last year, but we are seeing more mutual aid responses. And that's also coming into our city when we're on an ambulance call. We see a need for a second ambulance, in which that's being provided by mutual aid responses. So as far as a comparison to our budget, we do have an increase in the personnel amount, and that is because I'll get to the slide where I've got our major request in there, but I am asking for 3 firefighter paramedics to add to our current staffing. And that's in addition to the 3 vacancies that I have, but that is the reason for the increase on personnel. Operations actually has come down some, but I also have certain line items that I have increases on: protective clothing, uniforms, and in the area of fire equipment and supplies. So going to the budget request, I do have a Quint in there, 107-foot aerial apparatus, plus the equipment that would need to go on that truck. And just a rough number there is $2.1 million. The firefighter paramedics that we would have added into our staffing is $319,000 for 3 of them. And that includes all the benefits and everything with being a city employee. have replacing AEDs. That's the automated external devices for people with cardiac issues that we come upon that's in full arrest where they need to be defibrillated. The AEDs would replace the older ones that we have in the city buildings. There's 4 of them. And then 4 additional ones. One would be in our future fire administration training area. And then 1 in each of our response vehicles. Craddock's, myself, and Pascal's vehicles. So if we happen to be first on scene and have that need for an AED, we would be able to have one. The Opticon system is a device that is GPS tracked that we would put in 2 of our ambulances. And what it does is we would work with Mansfield to tie onto their system to where this device would change the traffic lights. It's done by GPS where it detects where that ambulance is and what intersection he's coming to in the direction, and it changes the lights. So the older system is called an Opticon system. I just kind of got stuck to that name, but it's GPS technology. The advantage here is not only if we are transporting a critical person to the hospital in Mansfield, we can activate those lights and get safely through intersections. Also, a little bit sooner response time. But the bigger advantage to me is if they're at the hospital and they finish with the patient, and then we get another call back in our city, or they need to return quickly for whatever reason, mainly a call, they would activate that system and respond back to our city, turning the lights back that direction to come here. We could also then look at the few lights that we have, putting them added to the system where we can activate them right here in our town. And I would only, that total price, $10,800, is for 2 ambulances. So I'm not too concerned about having the engines have that at this point, and we can really benefit from it going into Mansfield doing a transport with a patient. And then we've got some outdated fire hose, and the best way to describe this is most of our hose, we had several sections fail, so we do need to replace it. But when we replace it, I want to upgrade it to the higher technology hose. And I guess the best way to explain it is when your garden hose starts wearing down at home and it kinks more often, that's the critical issue with our fire hose. If we're going into a structure, fighting a fire, and there's not adequate pressure going through that line, it's going to kink. And so when they turn a corner down a hallway into another room, we just reduce that kinking of the hose, and the fire flow is going to continue. That hose also is going to upgrade our nozzles. I mean, we're asking for nozzles as well, to an upgraded nozzle that has less parts, less chance for failure, and less friction loss through it. So we're able to have a proper fire flow at lower pressures, which also saves on the truck when we're pumping. So obviously the Quint is a big item there, the aerial fire apparatus. And then, of course, as we go into the future, we want to look at our various community service programs that we do. And those are increases that I have within the budget to help fund those, such as our open house when we return back into our fire station. Other programs that would be new that we want to start, the Citizens Fire Academy, the smoke detector program, those kind of things. So I quickly went through those slides, but I'm available for any questions or concerns or issues that you've seen that we're currently dealing with.
Quick question. You said $10,800 for the Opticom system for 2 ambulances, and you mentioned that the lights that we have here in the city could be added to that. Would there be an additional cost for adding those? Is there some kind of...
There is a device, but I believe that's included into our program with this. There is, of course, an agreement with TxDOT if that's owned by, they operate those lights, so they would need to sign on to that type of program. But mainly it's the GPS device. It is like cell phone data, that's how it's activated. It's reading the signal of where the ambulance is, the direction they're going and everything, and then activating that signal. The good side of that is Mansfield's already got them in their traffic lights. We just need an agreement with them, and there wouldn't be any cost on that. They just would agree to allow us to sign into their system with our devices.
So any additional cost to add Kennedale's lights to that would be minimal, if anything?
Minimal, if any. It may be something that TxDOT already has, and it's just a matter of a program issue. I don't have a clear answer for you on that, though.
Good enough, thank you.
Hey, Chief, real quick. So, and next steps to consider, just, because we've kind of had this conversation for a few years now, but, one of the next steps is working with HR to research other comparable cities on salary. How are we doing in that regard? If you don't mind me asking.
Well, that would be something I definitely work with HR on, because we want comparable cities. It would be hard to compare with Arlington. As far as size, we're looking at size and probably the number of firefighters they have or stations. But we're here in the Metroplex, and that's one of the issues, I guess I would say, of just competition for higher salaries. But so I would get with HR, and I would recommend that we try to stay at that number 5 or 6 position out of whatever cities we review. But we should have at least 10 cities, that's what I'm familiar with, that we would pick from to kind of compare to. And I think that's also done as far as benefits.
Sure. Do we have any idea where we maybe currently stand in that regard?
I don't, and I don't know what cities we would look at as far as Kennedale. But, Pantego, Dalworth Gardens comes to mind, even Forest Hill, our neighboring cities that are small like us.
Gotcha.
Similar sized department, and those would be good ones to compare with. Again, I would hope we're in that mid-range. We don't have to be I'd love to be the top-notch one, but I definitely don't want to be on the bottom.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Chief, just to follow up with the mayor's question on that, I know more cities are requiring the EMT certification on top of the being a fireman's certification. How many other smaller cities are doing that as well, to where you can even get a comparable rate?
Most of I would say that Forest Hill probably has EMTs. I'm not certain, but if we provide an ambulance service, and fire departments that provide their fire department ambulance service, they're looking for paramedics as well. So we don't drop to EMTs. We're also licensed through the state as mobile intensive care units, which require 2 paramedics on it. So I've thought about that, to where we could maybe change that licensure, drop down to EMT, but that's like stepping backwards. It is a good thing to have all our members as firefighter paramedics.
And I agree
Nothing
with you.
against the EMTs, but that is a level down, it's not a lower standard of care, but you do have more skills and specialties as far as being a paramedic.
And I agree with you that the benefits of having that, especially in a small town with a small staff, is phenomenal for us.
Well, and the other side of that is when that ambulance is on a call, our engine will be available and it'll first respond to that. So whether Mansfield's coming in or MedStar or whoever it might be coming mutual aid to our city, we can immediately start paramedic care there with our fire crew. And we carry the ALS equipment, advanced life support equipment, on the engines.
I can only imagine it makes it more difficult to hire, because my understanding, the EMT is really hard to get. That's certified, correct?
It's just a longer school. It is hard to get. Your national,
75% flunk rate or something like that?
I'm sorry.
75% flunk rate?
It could be. It just, you got to dedicate yourself. You got to go to a good school, which all the schools out there really are good, and they train you to pass that national certification. It's national registry. So it's a higher standard. Used to just be a state test. Now it's national registry.
Let's move on to the ladder. Is this for the ladder truck or just the apparatus to put on a truck that we still have to purchase?
No, it is, I said ladder truck, it is an aerial fire apparatus, so it is a Quint, which is 5 functions. So it can pump, it fires, it carries hose, it carries ground ladders, but the key part of this aerial apparatus is it has a 107-foot aerial on it. We don't have one. We rely on Mansfield or Arlington to bring it should we have a large fire. The fire the other day, that was residential. If that had been really going through the roof, we wouldn't have been in that structure because of the collapse potential. And we would have been able to use an elevated stream and put water directly onto that roof that's on fire going into the structure.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. It's 2.1 million just for the ladder and the stuff on it.
And equipment, there's
But
159,000.
we still need to buy another $2 million fire truck for that, or does it go on our current one?
I'm not sure I'm following what you're,
That's where I'm confused.
It is a fire truck. It's all.
Okay.
it is a fire
Okay.
truck.
This just makes it seem like it was just going to be apparatus
That
itself.
Quint would, that aerial truck would go to an EMS call even, or a vehicle fire, it could still do.
I was doubting myself. Thank you. That was
Okay, no problem. And I'm sorry I wasn't explaining it right.
And you brought up the fire the other day in Brookstone, and that was a 2-story house that did have a fire on the roof. If we had this up front, Kendall, we didn't have to call Mansfield in this case or Tarrant County.
Well,
Get the apparatus.
and again, it depends on the size of the fire and what all is involved with that. We certainly might have a second aerial truck coming in from, Mansfield's going to come in if we run call closer to Arlington, and it's just part of their assignment to bring a aerial truck with them. So, for example, Mansfield, we had an engine and an aerial coming to that fire.
So it's not generally going to help us on the preventing it, but on putting it out faster because we have another aerial truck coming right behind it.
Yeah, and that fire, for example, they went in real quick.
Yeah.
And were able to, the collapse wasn't happening, so they went in and made an attack on the fire that was in the attic and actually got it under control quick. We lost Mansfield relatively quickly. I don't know if you noticed that, but they had a fire in their city that they needed to clear from us.
And this, again, because of even that scenario, we have our own truck to continue forward moving what we needed to do. Because I could have easily came back. You got, I remember when I left the scene, you guys were concerned about it maybe flaring up.
Yeah, there's a lot of overhaul on that fire.
Yeah.
Just the hidden voids, all the insulation that was still smoldering. And that fire, for example, was a lightning strike, but it probably sat there and smoldered for
An hour.
or
Yeah,
so
I remember.
before it was noticed. And no one was home, so they had no idea.
Yeah, the funny thing is when that lightning hit, I said, oh, that's hit somebody's house. And about an hour later, I got the text. So, okay. I know you and I have talked about a possible grant for this as well to help out with that. How's that process going?
Well, I have to wait for that one grant that I'm thinking about to open up, and that's the Assistance to Firefighter Grant. I definitely would apply for that. It's not going to hurt. When that opens up, I will bring it back to council because we will need a resolution on it to, our commitment to, there will be a match on that of probably 20%, but we'll write it up of that need for a Quint, and then it goes into evaluation. So that's a good possibility to just got to get awarded, and you're competing with everyone through the nation on that grant.
And just to be clear for everybody who's at home, when we purchase, let's say we purchase this tomorrow, how much time would it take for us to actually get this delivered?
2 to 3 years.
And then in the next 2 to 3 years, we have something like a hotel coming as well?
2 to 3 years of what?
We have a hotel coming in Kennedale in the next 2 to 3 years?
What I understand, yes.
All right, I just want to make sure.
Part of the reason for once we commit, we would get a letter of intent to buy. And so we would start the order process. We also would design it to fit our needs for equipment, whatever it is. But you design that ladder. I'm not just going to pick one that's already built, and that's the way they do it anyways. Design it, get it online to be built, but it does take time to get it off that line.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Chief, on the topic of the Quint, you mentioned it'll take 2 to 3 years. When do we write the check for that? So if we're to order it, how does
There are some options on that with the one company that I've been talking to mostly. We looked at 3 different trucks right now, but you have options of doing some prepayments. And so if you prepay upfront, the price drops down a little bit. So you can pay 25% upfront or 50, or pay for the whole thing, and your price will drop down. It's not anything drastic, but it's prepayment on the chassis and the aerial device.
Well, what I noticed is with this being in the budget, it definitely increased the fire department's ask this year. What I'm curious about is if we approved it, but it takes 3 years to get it, and this may be a bit more of a question for Dr. Horton, do we record the expense over the course of 3 years, or do we take the hit in 26, the full 2 million on the 26 budget?
Once you commit, that price is locked in, so nothing will change on that, but
Right, the price is locked in, but in terms of the money in our budget and what we have to allocate it for, do we need to show a $2 million increase in fire for 26 to cover the Quint, or do we spread that out over the course of 2 to 3 years and lower the overall budget or make it not less spiky? And I see Dr. Horton stepped up also.
yeah, you could,
Either way.
we could,
So when you look at the summary spreadsheet, this isn't in there because this, at 2.1, that's something we would need to issue debt for. If we were to do 25% or make payments, we would have to budget that based on the year the payment is made. So if we're going to make a 25% payment in FY '26, we would need to budget for that piece that we're going to pay. We would have a liability sitting on our balance sheet for the full amount, but we would need to budget only the amount we're going to spend that fiscal year. Then if we were going to cover the rest in '27, we would need to budget for that gap in '27 or '28 or whatever that payment plan looks like.
So you mentioned we would need debt to cover the full 2 million. Is there an opportunity in our current numbers where that isn't the case if we spread the payments out over, let's say, 3 years?
Offhand, I just want to say no, but, because $1 million, that's a significant hit to our operating costs. So I don't see that we'd be able to have $1 million just on hand to even pay half of it without looking at debt or looking at some pretty significant cuts in other areas.
We couldn't do it.
Thank you so
See,
much.
Councilman Navarez, I told you I needed to work on being direct.
So if you don't mind, to clarify what he was talking about, where the 25, 50, or pay the full thing, the 25, 50 is not an option because of our,
No, it is.
the cap.
It is an option.
It's an option. We would need to issue debt to cover.
I understand you gotta have it.
Yeah,
you
so
gotta- You have to have it. I understand that, but, okay. I was just confused because I think that's what Ms. Glover was trying to say, was that if we do $700,000 this budget cycle, $700,000, and then another $700,000 in 2028, and we get the truck then it's not 2.1 on the books this year, 700,000 this month, or even if we do 50/50, that's better. $1 million this year, $1 million next year.
see, 700,000 is still a pretty steep mountain to climb. So
I
we
agree.
would still need to issue debt to cover the cost. At this point, we would just be discussing timing, but
And we can't issue more debt for other projects because we'll have it used up on this, pretty much.
Yes
we're
and
just
no.
talking about the number of, we'd have to look at how much debt we could issue, and I'll speak a little bit on that at the end of the presentation. I don't want to take all the chief's time up
Okay,
and derail it, but I will touch on debt before we leave tonight.
all right.
I'm open for more questions. I can elaborate on the 3 personnel that requesting for, but
Chief, on these AEDs, you're having 8 of them, which I understand the importance of having in your vehicle and everything. The current ones that we have now, would they do a trade-in or something like that? Or are they just junk?
Probably not, just because they're older and the technology, the programming in them is different and they're not upgradable to current standards for CPR and shocking for the layperson using defibrillating. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. Let me get my show on. All right, as per usual, we'll start off with the library and then work our way to the senior center, communications, and then the future coming recreation potential. I say potential, right? All right, so first and foremost, let's talk about the current structure at the library. So currently, we have me, the director over the library, the senior center, and communications. Okay, currently, at the library, we have a library programming librarian. She is at 50% for the library. We have 2 full-time clerks and 2 part-time clerks. At the senior center, we don't have any paid staff. We have a contract with Meals on Wheels, and that person provides only activities and coordinates the meals. In communications, we have the EDC covering 50% for events. This person only does event coordination. And then in recreation, it doesn't exist yet, but it may. We have YMCA liaison and facility rentals currently happening. Right now, library staff handles all of the facility rentals and reservations, and I am the YMCA's liaison through the library. The library programming and EDC person, they are one and the same. That's Sarah, if you don't know her. She does a fantastic job at both of them, but I need more, so that's why we're here. All right, so what we're talking about in the future, and obviously this is for 26, but also years past 26, we want to incorporate the library, the senior center, communications, community events, and recreation activities in one department known as community resources. That will house all of those activities and be able to combine staffing coverage for activities across different departments. What we're looking at is a department director that's going to have oversight over 4 areas. Recreation will turn into a real thing. In 2026, we're looking at having a supervising librarian, adult services person, that would be our programming person, removed from EDC completely and 100% services to the library. I would also love to see a full-time youth services librarian. I don't know if you've been to the library lately, but it looks very different than it ever has before. And we're going to continue to grow in terms of need and population wants and desires. And so our youth services program is extremely strong, but it has room to grow and develop and be even stronger, and that requires a youth services librarian. We're also looking, well, we'll just do the library right now. So those are 2 things for the library that we want. Currently, and in 2027, I'll come back and ask for you to change the part-time to a full-time, but that's for 2027, that's not this year. lucky. So one of the things that is not staff-related that I would really like to see is RFID conversion. I asked for this last year while we were doing all of our moving and inventory, et cetera. If you were not part of that conversation last year, we had to remove every single book from every single shelf to be able to do inventory. If we had had RFID, we could have just run a wand right down the shelving unit and been done in hours as opposed to weeks. So it's an amazing staff time-saving component that we could add to our services, but it also saves patrons because they can take their library books to one stack, check them all out at once, and be done. They don't have to sit there and wait to go through the line to check things out. It's a huge efficiency improvement. The other thing we're asking for the library specifically is increase in staff, and that's what we talked about, 50% of the library programs to go to 100% for adult services and supervision, and then add the full-time youth services librarian. And I have the letters MLS after those. That's a master's degree in library science. And the reason I ask for that is because we are growing to the point where we're going to need somebody who's been professionally trained to carry on librarianship, to be able to grow our programs and activities the way we'll be able to sustain them for a very long time. The RFID conversion, I'm asking for up to $20,000. I have gotten a bid or a quote from Envisionware, which is who we use currently for our print management system as well as our computer reservation system. The quote is actually only $16,721.64, but given the changes in the economy right now, we're asking for up to $20,000 to cover any differences. The RFID, I do believe that that's probably the best thing that we can do going forward for the library. Since we've made all of these other changes, we've already gotten a lot of support to make technology changes and improvements. This is kind of the last step toward that final package of improvements. In terms of staffing, this is kind of the chart of what I'd like to see happen for 2026. The two things that I would love to see happen are changing the 50% to a one full-time supervising adult services librarian, and then creating that new position for a youth services librarian. For 2027, that's where I see the larger change, where we shift everything over to the one big department with all of the services contained. And that's where we would see the part-time clerk change to a full-time clerk. Here on the adult services, this is just a list of things that we currently provide. We have been adding more and more activities for adult services as the year has gone by. Since we were able to hire that last position, that position has pretty much been dedicated to providing adult services. And it's incredible how many people we have coming to these activities. We have created a book club that hadn't been in existence for a very long time. We have gardening programs now. We have a seed library where patrons come and check out seeds that they can grow in their own garden. We have a partnership with the Rock group over at the Methodist Church, where they come in twice a month to get learning activities and access to the books. They check out books every time they come. We've been doing a lot of outreach with the senior centers, the senior living areas. Hammock Creek, we go to their their after-school program. But we also help the parents over there who are English language learners. So those are some of the things that we have done. We want to do a whole lot more, and the only way that we could do that is to have more help. Youth services, same thing. We continue to provide all kinds of activities for the kids and families to come to, but we'd like to do more. The staffing costs, I have put down a range on here because we're looking at the numbers for the different levels of positions. So I went through the state auditors' classifications to identify exactly what those ranges for those positions were. So we were using those as their base salary. This doesn't show their benefits, though, and that's included in the budget breakdown. So the last thing on my huge wish list is more space. And I know that's a hard thing to give. We've already gained quite a bit of space by taking over the rest of the library, but The reality is we're going to outgrow that very quickly. We've already felt like we're outgrowing something we haven't even moved into yet. And that's just because of community demands. We have a lot of people who are coming to use our services and participate in library activities, and they like to have room, they like to be able to do things, and we're already feeling like we're too big for our building. The other idea of that space is to be able to have everything in one place. We'd love to have the library and the senior center together with recreation, the YMCA potentially being in the same space, to be able to have easy access for citizens, one-stop shopping to go get everything that you need, to have the kids in one place, the adults in one place, potentially the grandparents in another place, all in the same building. So it seems like a very effective way to meet community demand in one space rather than having everything spread out across the city. And then that takes us to the senior center. So do you want me to do all 3 or 4 in a row, or do you want to ask questions along the way? Just go through it? It's easy just for me to just keep talking, so I'll just keep going. All right, so for the senior center, I only have one thing that I'd like to add to the senior center, and obviously it's personnel. We have an amazing relationship with Meals on Wheels, with the activities person there. They are able to provide the activities and coordinate those for us on a regular basis, but that person is only contracted to work with us from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. That means anything before or after that is outside of their purview, and we don't get to do any kind of outreach. We don't have anybody going out into the community to reach people where they are, and that's something that I feel we really need to do, because we have a lot of seniors who are not able to get to where we are and cannot let us know what their needs are. So I feel like it's important for us to actually reach out to the community and go to them rather than us expecting them to come to us. This would not eliminate Meals on Wheels entirely. We'd still be able to serve the lunches. That's a separate entity, and it's still not fully funded. I think it's $1,000 a year, if that hasn't changed, to be able to do that. So the only thing for the senior center is I would love to see a full-time person. For the communications wish list, since I want the 50% event coordinator to be 100% library, I would love to see another 50% event coordinator, but I'd also like to see that person have graphic design and social media skills to take on that task, in addition to their event coordinating activities. And then the last one is the future recreation. That I would love to see a 25-hour per week, 50% person for that, to take on facility reservations and recreation activities, be the liaison for the YMCA. And then the potential for the ball fields coming up is that they could cover the cost for that over the course of time. And that's it. Oh, and the library will take on the camera expense. That's also theirs. Got it, Mike.
Let's just talk about the RDIF real
RFID.
fast. Yeah, thank you. That's the cost to convert now, but you have outgoing books and incoming books. So what's the ongoing cost?
It's minimal. It's less than, I think it's 50 cents per tag. So we already have to pay for it to be tagged with other things, so it would not increase the expense tremendously. The biggest expense for that is the actual equipment for checking out, the pads, the monitors, et cetera. So, and that's just a one-time cost.
So you,
There is a software component, but that has already been rolled into our software.
yeah, you already have that. Yeah, okay. So it's just an expansion of your current software, or fully utilizing the software that you already have?
Well, kind of, yeah. It's an extension of that software.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the space scenario, because I agree with you. I feel like, you know, the police station is getting more, but you guys are getting more, but it's already running out of both. if I could make a magic wand and build you a building tomorrow, how do you see what you were talking about, where the senior centers within the library? Like, are you talking about going to find land and building a new building? Or are we talking about trying to connect the two or make the library bigger in the back end?
Ideally, it would be a whole brand-new building. I mean, if we're going to talk wishes, then definitely it's a whole brand-new building, and it's in a space that's conveniently located for the community to get to. If money isn't an issue, of course, it would be a whole building that could house a library and a senior center and a recreation area and a little gym, and it could be near the ball fields. I mean, just to make everything right there accessible and easy. But if I had to talk about money, yeah, I think that, connecting them is one thing, but I don't know that that's even feasible or logical. So.
Minimally, what would you need? What were you looking for on space?
Well, if we could get double, I mean, if we're talking only about the library. While our problem is, and I know that, everybody has seen this over the last year, our programs have grown so big that we can't house them anywhere. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I can walk you through a little bit of a problem we've had this year, and we had a quick come to the rescue. Last year, we utilized Delaney for our summer reading programs, and we had over 300 people attend these. It's not a couple people, it's a lot of people that are coming to these programs. We wanted to do that again this year, and the schools were very much inclined to let us, but then every gym they have is under construction this year. So we had nowhere to do any programming for the community for that size of a program. So Red's Roadhouse has come to the rescue. We're going to be able to do it there, and it's the only other building that can house that many people with enough parking. And so, as we continue to offer programs that are received in that way, we're going to need some place for that to happen.
So, so you're really talking about a community room?
I'm talking about a community center.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about one room. Yeah,
Trust
absolutely.
me, we've talked about it too.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's say minimally, we go back to the minimum. You said double. If we gave you double, would all that be dedicated for a library, or can a portion be that come back to the community center that we lost for the youth center?
If we need to keep in mind those numbers. If I'm looking to house a program of 300 attendees, it has to hold that.
Or not, but okay. Yeah, I hear you loud and clear, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Mm.
Actually, just a follow-up with the seniors, so you want to hire somebody, this is going to take over programming?
Take over programming, take over outreach, continue to do meals. We would no longer have the contract with meals.
Now, I've been telling seniors who've been stuck trying to get up there that they could use the Tarrant County tram or the Arlington one. Is that a local thing, or is that only specifically for the doctors?
So it's only Tuesdays.
It's only restricted to one day?
Correct.
For both programs?
I only know of the one, but I know that the Catholic Charities offers a program, but it is also only on specific days.
The Arlington one's only Tuesday as well? And the Tarrant County Metro? I thought we also had a contract with Arlington for Arlington, Kennedale.
It's Fort Worth. The contract we have is with Fort Worth.
No, I know I thought we had two contracts, one with Metro and one with Arlington.
No.
What happened to the Arlington one? I know we had a contract with them.
Well, actually, it's still on one.
Okay.
Metro does both, but they're separate, if that
Gotcha.
makes any sense.
That's the $2 ride that we pay $1,000 a month
Yeah.
for. Okay. All right. And so that's only Tuesdays?
Correct.
That's crazy.
Is it Tuesday and Thursday?
I think it's just Tuesday, and our biggest bingo days are Monday and Wednesday, so that doesn't help.
Yeah, that bugs me, actually.
Why don't we go ahead and take a 5, 7, 10-minute break? They always turn in a little longer than what I say. So it's 6:52 p.m., and we'll be back here shortly. All right, it is 7:03 PM. We're going to go ahead and reconvene.
All right. So continuing the spirit of wanting and giving, the- where did it go, John? I need to go to the next slide. We got to slide it down?
Well, you can go right here.
But I want to do it. Right. All right. So like I said, in the spirit of wanting and giving, the Department of Public Works, we are seeking a public works, project manager. This person would be responsible for not only for vertical and horizontal position, project, they would be overseeing the project life cycle, defining the scope of the project, keeping the project on schedule and within budget, manage project risk, identify and manages stakeholders, and ensure effective communication with all parties. Also, this position could be on a trend of succession planning. And like I said here, the salary here is just average for a person with an individual with at least 2 to 4 years experience. So it's just a typical average salary for this position at that 2 to 4 years experience. Continuing, we looking to seek some capital, major capital equipment like this a 20-yard dump truck. This just going to just basically cut our travel time by a third because we have currently have a 7-yard dump truck that's about, I don't know, 10, 12 years old. So it's getting there with maintenance and mileage. This equipment would also help us in for sanding streets when we have winter weather. It's going to come in handy because it's going to save us travel time. The price is very steep, but this is a new truck. If we look to find a used truck, we could get it cheaper, but I would prefer having a brand new truck. Continuing for major capital equipment, this other piece of equipment here is a man lift. Basically, it's a lift that what we use to do the Christmas tree, but this is going to also help with down trees or for any other carrying capacity that would alleviate some of our construction activity that we use. The average price is $133,000. A used one, we could get it for about $80,000. This mulcher that you see here could be used apart from public works. It could be used at the community development for clearing ditches, mulching high weeds, brushes, and this running at least $9,000 to $32,000. And this is going to be in place and put it at the current piece of equipment we have. We have a skid steer that is compatible to have a piece of equipment installed on that. So we don't have to buy the skid steer, we just have to buy the mulcher. And coming down to our paving, right now we have at least 30% of our street network is in very poor condition. We looked at we looked to do some increase in the street maintenance. Mostly it's been done with the ILA through the county, and it's not really working out for us to keep up with the county because we just get like 3 3 streets per year, if ever. So right now we have Sweeney Hyatt, New Hope, and Eden Road on the ILA with the county, which we're going to start this month. After that, we don't have no paving projects to take place. So we are looking to start implementing and getting funding to do additional streets so we could get some of these poor lane miles up to current standard. And this side here, it's not very visible, but it just tells you some of the asphalt streets that's very poor. And then on another slide, it has the typical cost that it's going to cost for just doing any of these streets here. On your far right is going to give you what the typical cost is for paving those segments or streets that's in very poor condition. In a nutshell, I mean, if we need to keep up with the rate of poor condition street we have, I'm looking at least $2 million per year to keep up. And that's just for asphalt. We haven't touched on concrete street as well. And this slide, it tells you where we at currently, 50% fair, 30% good, 20% poor condition. This other slide here is just some park improvement. We are looking to update the park playground equipment for Rogers Farm. Some of the costs that I've received is averaging $160,000 to upgrade that park. On your right, you see that existing playground. The left is just a depiction of what we would like to see. So that's something that we would like to consider doing. Keep going on all these infrastructure projects that we're looking at. And like I said, this is just an example of some of the streets that are in bad condition, or very poor condition. And this is, this is concrete pavement. So we just want to continue working with the county for the asphalt paving, and we need to get contracts on the books to do concrete and have the ILAs with the county for asphalt. Another project that we would like to see done is the Peggy Lane improvement. This is going to include water sewer, just like we did in College Sublette. This is water sewer, curb gutter, driveway, sidewalk. And we are estimating this project to be $3 million. The good thing is this project is already designed. So all we need to do is to get some right-of-way approval. We might have to get some leases, and this project is good to go. So once we could get this $3 million on the book, we could start this project. Some of the projects on the public safety side is to start putting additional street lighting. We're in the process right now of installing 5 street lights that you all approved about a month ago for street lighting with solar panels. So we want to continue that effort, and we are probably looking at another $50 million for another 5 in this current budget coming up, 2026. Continue on safety. We need to continue putting flashing stoplights for additional $10,000. And we have some areas picked out that needs these flashing stoplights. I think I'm missing a slide here, but anyways, on the slide you see a utility cut repair, and the picture underneath is showing what it is like. So right now, based on the contract we have with Arlington, whenever they do a utility repair, they are not going to repair the street for us. So it's on us to make sure that the street is repaired. And based on some of the repairs that I have done recently, I'm estimating for the year, give or take, $50,000 to come after Arlington and do those street repairs. So we need to make sure that we have this utility cut repair on the books so we could have the street back on drivable. Another project, again, that I'm looking forward to doing, it's the overlay of Clover Lane. I know this is the project we have the bulb outs on, but that street is falling apart, and that needs to be overlaid. So we are looking at $150,000 for overlaying that Clover Lane between the Parkway and, which one is that? And Reeves. In an effort to continue the program that we have with Arlington to maintain at least $500,000 worth of infrastructure upgrade, and also to maintain good water quality standard, I would like to make sure that we start looping dead-end mains. Right now, we have at least 14 automatic flushers throughout the city, and it's costing us at least $1,000 a week that we are unaccounted for funds, that we are losing $1,000 a week from those automatic flushers. So to compensate for that, we need to start looping dead-end mains, and we have several of the mains in the city here that are dead-end. And one area is that's depicted here is Donny Drive that ties in with Buxom and Hudson Village Creek. At that location, we have 3 automatic flushers that runs every day. So I would like to see that we start looping dead-end mains so we could eliminate water quality issues and save $1,000 a week for unaccounted funds. This other project is North Road Improvement. On this, you could see the red, highlighted red, that's the project that's already that's not in progress. It's going to be started in the next week or so with a CDBG grant with the Tarrant County. The area in blue is I would like to make sure that we extend that project to eliminate that 6-inch asbestos cement pipe that we have there with 8-inch PVC pipe. So we can make sure we have this segment completely with up-to-date PVC line at 8-inch. And the estimate for this OPCC is $300,000. Continuing on infrastructure improvement is Linda Drive improvement. I don't think you would understand all the stuff that we have there, but this area needs improvement for water and sewer as well. I haven't put the cost to this because I'm not sure where we at with costs and where we at with the projects and which one you're going to decide that we want to move forward with. But I'm estimating that on the back of my head, at least $500,000 on this project alone, just to update water lines. And if we go to update sewer lines, we additional another $400,000, so we're looking like $1 million just for Linda Drive. And that's not including the paving, because that area, the paving needs really needs work to be done. So it don't make sense that we go and do the paving and the water and wastewater needs upgrading. So we might as well do it as one project with a full reconstruction, water, sewer, paving for about $1 million plus. Another water utility project is Corey Edwards. Right now we have a 2-inch water lines that's kind of redundant because we have a 6-inch on the other side. So I would like to eliminate that 2-inch water line and make it up to an 8-inch water line. Some bridge improvement. I'm sure you're all aware of this Eden Road Bridge that gets run over almost every 6 months. This bridge needs to be widened, and we are looking at a project cost of $422,000. A similar bridge that we have right here is a New Hope Road. Right now, the decking on that bridge is broken. We have a steel plate on that we've overlaid so we can make sure that the road is still drivable, but that bridge needs to be reworked as well. And just for that bridge alone, we are estimating $200,000. And here's another sewer project, and this is off of Dick Price Road. Basically, I'm calling it an aerial crossing. We have a sewer line there that's flimsy, it's man-made, put together. It's a 6-inch sewer line that needs to be supported and at least be with a cast iron pipe. I haven't put a price to it, but on the ballpark, we are looking like $200,000 for that crossing. And this one is some channel cleaning. We need to do some dredging and all of the bridges that we have. TxDOT already reached out to me and asked that we make sure that we maintain all those bridges. This is the one that's on Eden Road, the new bridge that was recently installed last year. And we are estimating that price to be $100,000 just to clean that bridge. Right here, you can see this stick, this is marker stick. It's almost 4 feet with sludge already. It's just within a year and a half. So the capacity of this bridge, carrying capacity, has been reduced by 4 feet. So this is something that we need to address, not only on the Eden Road Bridge, the New Hope Bridge, but all the bridges that we have within the city. And continuing with the water distribution system, right now we are working on T4, the ground storage tank at the high school. Hopefully we should have that up and running by July. Some of the other tanks that's coming up that we have to get done is the elevated storage tank. We need to have that rehabilitated. We're estimating that to be at least $1 million cost because we have to do all the inside of that, do some water quality protection in there, and the estimate we got for that is $1 million. And I want to believe that we have already budgeted for that, but we can't put all the tanks down. So once the T4 is up, we're gonna start on the elevated storage tank, hopefully by beginning of 2026. And some of the, based on this is just some statistical storage capacity that we have within the city. Regarding regulatory compliance, the lead and copper rule started in 2025, which we should be starting very shortly. We need to start sampling, monitoring, and testing for lead and copper in the homeowners' faucets. Right now, just to do a random sampling, we are estimating to cost $45,000. Similarly, for the stormwater management program, the new requirements with TCEQ required a whole bunch of new upgrades to the stormwater management plan that we have in place. And the consultant has willingly sent me a quote for that, and they're estimating it to cost us $75,000 to get all the updates and all the regulatory requirements to meet our stormwater management permit. And these regulatory stuff is stuff that we need to have, so it's required. And I believe that's all the slides I have regarding infrastructure and my wants. I'll take any question that you may have at this time.
Christian, on the new job for the project manager role, did we say that would also be the same role for finance and the grant program and their project manager need, or is that separate?
This project manager role is basically for project. It's going to be vertical projects and horizontal project, water, sewer, paving, as well as buildings.
So two different people. Okay, I see Director Orton checking this out too. Thank you.
All right, Christian. I just have a handful for you. Let's just start with the equipment first. The Kenworth, how often would you use this? Is this like a daily use kind of thing, or?
It depends on the project that we have at hand. So like if we have, like, you know, right now, we're going to be starting Sweeney Hyatt. So all those unclassified material that the county is going to be removing, their equipment by themselves is going to like take forever. So they ask that we help supply a truck to haul off material. So that dump truck comes in handy there. Like I said, what we have is only a 7-yard, and we are asking for a 20-yard. So that's going to help the county. It's going to speed up the project, and it's going to come in handy for us when we have to do sanding the street for icy weather.
Okay. And then on the mulcher, you were speaking on it doing like the
High weeds
along like the street?
along the streets where we can get to the lawnmower or the boom mower. And for some of the city lots that we have that has a lot of brush in there, we'd like to keep it mulched and clean. This is going to take care of that.
So just for around the streets, will this improve how fast you guys do this? So will be so much lag going around, or at least not get so high as some?
Right. And it's going to help with code enforcement as well. You know, if the code calls and then said, well, the people don't want to mow their lawn, it's too high, this is going to take care of that, and then we could bill the homeowners for that.
Okay, and then on the asphalt projects,
That's just a list that I put there. I mean, it's up to the council to decide. I could pull up a bunch of streets and say, I want to do these, but I give you all empower you all to decide which street that you all would want to see in your district.
so
We have a whole bunch.
putting aside like the Dick Price area projects that you have later on in this presentation, where do you think the roads are priority? So not Linda, not that area.
Well, Linda is a priority for me.
Yeah. Putting those aside, on this list, on just the asphalt, what's your top one?
Top one would be Mansfield. One just off of New Hope Road. It's a dead-end street, and we're starting to see some development in there, but that road is horrible.
Okay. And then on the street rail rehabilitation, why not, especially with the asphalt side of it, why not just get our own truck that does asphalt, or because some of these are not too bad on pricing, some of them are pretty bad on pricing. Would it be just cheaper, especially with so many roads, just to get an equipment that could do that and keep it in-house?
It would in the long run, but up front, it's going to cost you, because we got to buy a paver. That's going to cost you probably $1 million. You're going to have crews. That's going to cost you probably, to start up again, maybe another $500,000. Do we have that in-house to start a crew? We could if we have the budget. So right now, it behooves us to just put it on a contract.
And my approach is always 10 years from now, how can we improve it? Would this be a better road than doing what we're currently doing? Would this be a better path for us? Keeping it in-house, making the switch to in-house repairs?
If we have a crew that has experience over time, it might be, and we could pick and choose what we want, and it could be done faster, because more than likely we could do this every day. You know, just pick a street in the summer especially and be paving from June to September.
And that's kind of my angle on it. Like even the ones that are fair or good are eventually going to be not so fair and fair. So this will help us
Obviously,
keep up with
over
those.
as the years progresses, every street is going to deteriorate. So it deteriorate at a factor. So yes, if we don't keep up, every street is going to be poor.
Okay, and then on the concrete side of things, I'm sorry, I didn't catch a price.
Price, right now, the average price for 1 square yard of concrete is $120.
For 1 square?
1 square yard,
Yeah, okay, that's what I was imagining. And it was 120?
$120.
That includes cutting it up?
Yes,
Yeah, okay, that's not that bad. Okay. And who does that for you? Do we do that or somebody? Okay,
the county doesn't do concrete, so we'll have to put it on contract.
okay. And then on the park, thank you, by the way. We could pull that from our parks fund. We don't, it doesn't come up from your budget, right?
Correct, I think the Park Dedication Fund would have that for the Rogers Farm.
Do we have a little room maybe to put some of those solar lights over there too? In the walking path?
That's a plan. We are getting 5, if you all would approve it, we would have 5 in this coming budget.
Okay. I'm going to skip Peggy because I know that's a priority. It's my priority too. I'm just going to skip that for a moment. Let's jump down just to the area that I'm going to call Basin B. You have some Basin B projects for up to coincide with what we're doing so we don't have bottlenecks. Why wasn't any of these included in the Basin B project itself?
Basin B, it's a whole area, and basically it's for what we call I&I, inflow and infiltration. That's when we have broken pipe, cracked pipes, sagging pipe, that when it rains, water gets into the pipe, and then we have a capacity issue. And that interceptor project that we have in the books, and it's right now under design, it's going to be from 820 all the way to Texas Raceway track. So it's like 15,000 linear foot of pipe.
Yeah.
It's under design right now.
And so shouldn't some of these upgrades to that neighborhood have been included in that? I guess that's where I'm lost. I thought we were upgrading that neighborhood.
No,
Project.
we have some of the areas along that interceptor project is included in that. Those I&Is that I'm talking about is throughout the city,
Yeah.
where we have all infrastructure that we need to do I&I study. If not, we know it's bad. Instead of doing the study, we need to start going and upgrading the sewer pipes, because we have a lot of areas that still have clay pipes.
Yes. Yeah, especially over here. So, and I think you said this earlier, it's better to, if we're going to do the sewers, let's just say on Linda's pretty bad road, it's really up there. We might as well just do it as a big capital
A full
project.
recon,
What do you think the price would be if we did Linda sewer, water, and street price?
probably 2 million plus. We could have that Linda Road, Peggy Circle, Hannah, that whole area is in bad shape.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the bridges. Obviously, I think Eden is a big priority. I think there was recently even an accident on there. And I want you to keep that as a priority, just me personally. But on this, what was it? You said there was a brand-new bridge,
That's the New Hope Bridge.
the channel
that-
cleaning section.
that the text that recently did, like 23, 24, down by the racetrack on New Hope Road. That's that new bridge that's already silted up already.
So I guess that's my concern, I guess. They just did it a few years ago. It's going to cost us $100,000 to clean it up. Do we expect this every couple of years, or
As,
just because it's monsoon season, kind of?
no, it's just because from the rain and wash off.
Yeah. So, and I think I've talked to, we had this discussion before on council as well about just our waterway infrastructure itself, our rainwater. Does that need a lot of cleaning out so it prevents something like this?
Yep.
Our creeks and et cetera?
Yeah, because we don't have, in the city, we don't have a lot of storm drains. We have open ditches.
Yeah.
You know, I would like what we just did in Colette Sublet, and what are we proposing to do in Peggy Lane is to have infrastructure with the storm drain. So we don't have to go and clean ditches and stuff like the bridges and stuff, all that's going to be underground and taken care of.
And I'm with you on all new projects, make that a standard, just like with sidewalks and things like that.
Yep.
I guess I'm concerned with our current creek structure, which is pouring storm, I'm assuming, into places like this. Is
Yeah,
there
I mean,
anything we can do in the next
all
year?
where you see head walls and stuff on your road, that we have
Like erosion prevention stuff?
box culvert, yeah, the capacity is probably a quarter instead of being 3 feet. We have probably 1.5 feet of clearance. You know, we just recently did that one off Pennsylvania. Remember, what's that street name? I forget. That ditch cleaning we did for $30,000 or $40,000 probably a couple of months ago. People were complaining for backup and flooding in the property is because of siltation. Because over the years, there were no maintenance done with any of the bridges in the Kennedale. And this is a brand-new bridge, like a year old, and it's almost a quarter covered already.
And that's my concern. I mean, obviously, we got to clean this up, but I don't want to do this every year, or every other year for that matter. If there's something we can do upstream as a project to
Well,
mitigate
to
this.
eliminate this stuff, then we need to have riprap on all your bad ditches.
But isn't there also like TECQ funding and state funding to clean up the waterways?
There is some, but it's very hard to come by because Kennedale, being a small city, it's hard to fight with the bigger cities to get,
But a grant writer would help you with that?
probably.
Okay. Now you see where I was going with that.
They definitely could help us with writing grants from the Water Board or TCEQ or EPA, whoever has funding for infrastructure.
Sure. Where the aerial crossing, is this the only instance of this? Of the Dick Price?
Currently, right now, because we did one about 6 months ago at the Texas Raceway.
Yeah.
We had that aerial crossing that came as an emergency because it was on the verge of collapsing. So we did that. So I don't want to see this one come into that stage.
How much would that cost?
Since that piece of the creek there
Roughly.
is probably 40 feet wide, we are probably looking like 200,000 because we had to put piles and riprap. Because the one at Raceway cost us 230 grand. So it's going to be less than 230 grand.
Why is your stuff always so expensive, Christian?
I don't know, man. It's just the nature infrastructure.
Okay, and then lastly, on the compliance regulatory, this is all state or
This
TECQ or?
regulatory driven, this TCEQ driven. It's a must. We have to have funding to do those
What's our timeline on this?
annually.
So these are just
See, right now,
our
like
annual stuff that we normally have.
we just finished the inventory for the LCR. You know, we appreciate you all giving the funding for that. So that's done. Now we have to start the testing and monitoring.
Okay. And then how's your timeline on capping the wells and migrating fully?
So right now we have 2 wells still in progress, and we're looking to cap them and be done with them by 2027.
2027?
So hopefully by 2027, we should go all surface water.
Okay, and so with that, you were talking about like circulating the water, and I get that, but that also helps with pressure coming from, especially since we're getting water from 2 entities.
Right. Because not only the dead-end mains, you know, TCQ don't like seeing dead-end mains, not only TCQ, anybody, because that's a form for bacterial growth and so forth. That's why we have to put automatic flushers to keep that water circulating. If I connect the 2 dead ends, then my water is constantly moving.
And I'm sorry, where exactly were those again, the circulation? You only have a couple, right? 1 or 2?
Well, that's like I said, right now throughout the city, we have 14 automatic flushers.
14.
14.
And you're wanting to remove
We
how
have
many?
one right here on North Road, and one that used to be on 3rd Street, and we got a lot of complaint, and we move it to North Road. We're still getting complaint on that because it's constantly flushing. But the one here of Downey Drive, we have 3 flushes in that neighborhood. So I'm looking to connect all these dead ends here.
So you want like 2 key areas, basically? You're focused on 2 key areas to fix.
Picking the areas that where we have most of the flushes. You know, hopefully when we finish the North Drive water project, it should eliminate the need for that flusher that we have right now.
And then one last curiosity question. If we did the sewer and water line improvements, what's the life expectancy of those lines? Like, most of our lines are 50, 60 years old. Obviously, they're dead.
With PVC, you're looking, you know, no soil movement, no bad weather, no extensive drought, you're probably looking at 100 years.
Okay, thank you.
Providing that, again, if we don't have extreme cold or extreme drought, that the soil starts shifting and it start buckling your PVC pipe, it pulls it apart, you start getting breaks, you're gonna expect that, but.
Of course. Yeah. I was just seeing how far we've come in 50 years as far as
Yeah,
infrastructure.
you're looking 75 to 100 years without incident.
Okay.
And that's gonna be coupled with if we have good street surface.
All right. Thank you, Christian.
You bet. Anyone else?
Christian, I just have one comment around the street study. I know you mentioned, I think your comment was it was up to council to decide which street to kind of go after first, but I think what would be helpful is a recommendation from your department on best use of capital so that we can prevent a street from going from marginal to poor. So kind of where can we get, the most amount of time, the money spent without having to rip the whole road up and redoing everything underneath it?
Well, that would have to be the streets that's in moderate to fair. So those that we have crack seal on.
Right. Just in terms of budgeting and planning for 26, just kind of looking at maybe a short list from your department that says, here's 10 roads that are in danger of going from marginal to poor. Here's the estimate we think that we need to keep them in at least marginal status to keep them from getting any worse while we also focus on other larger capital improvements.
Sure, I could provide you with a listing that said 10, 15 streets,
Okay.
by blocks or segment. That's, let's say, in poor condition before it goes into very poor.
Right. And that was kind of the intent of the study was to.
Yeah, and I
look
could
at those and-
use that from the streets that doesn't require any utility work, just paving.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. All right.
So I'll quickly wrap this up, just a couple comments on how we're going to pay for everything, or potentially the water tanks, ARPA funding, we'll cover those. We just have to be finished by December 2026. That was the T4 and the elevated tank. Regarding debt, Mr. Gary, Councilman Gary, we'll get to, I'll more thoroughly answer your question from earlier. These are very preliminary numbers. However, there are 2 plans we're looking at. The potential of issuing $8 to $9 million in end of FY26, beginning of FY27. We also have a scenario where we'd issue $5 million in 1 year, follow that up with $6 million. Again, these are preliminary. Before we could get any real numbers from Samco Capital, we would need to have our certified tax roll, the certified values in hand. But there are 2 scenarios that we could look at as far as a quint, like you mentioned, Councilman Gary. This, if we did the 2-year plan, this would be one where we could pay part up front on the quint, look at some of the street projects that could be identified, and then look at paying the other half of the quint on a different bond issuance. So we do have some options, but very preliminary numbers, it would be 8 to 9 million at one shot, or 11 million total divided by 2 years.
So John, and I know where we're at as far as how much more debt we can take on, and the expectation of that, but let's say we did the 8 million, like you said, and then all of a sudden we're being asked to do 20% or 50% on the bridge project. Are we able to have that kind of wiggle room in the future as well to do a bigger bridge project, for example?
Depending on how far out in the future you're talking about, because we do have debt falling off incrementally going into the future. I don't want to project 5 years out, for example. There's so many factors that go into it, but hypothetically, yes, we could issue increments continually as we go out. We would just be limited based on what our values are at the time, what our growth rate is, what our tax rate could go up to at the time, because we do have some legislative limits on that. But in theory, that would be a goal, is that at some point we get on a cadence where every X number of years we issue debt. It sounds like we already have projects lined up to do so, but currently I'm not prepared to speak on what that plan would look like, or 5 or 10-year plan.
And I understand the nuances of that over a 10-year, 20-year period.
The ask I gave for Samco was a very short-term ask, and it was with a specific number in mind, and those were the two scenarios I've been given. But I can't expand that ask if there's interest.
And then in our current state, I know our bond rating went up, for example. I think on the last bond that we pulled, it was 4%, 4 something. Do you remember?
I don't want to lie to you. I can't remember that.
I can't remember either.
It's on our city's website, though.
How is the rate right now, currently in the United States with our economy or whatever is going on right now?
I haven't looked.
Okay. So for something like that, would you reach out to our consultant that we've had for?
Yeah, again, the ask I gave him, it was very, very general, but he would need other factors to get a rate, like what our certified rolls are at, what our growth would look, because all those factors would play into our rate. The bond rating, the increase in that does help us, but it's not the only factor that comes into play.
Sure. Yeah.
You can have the best bond rating ever, and if you can't afford it, you still won't get the debt, or it would be at a higher rate because there'd be risk there. So that is one factor that's definitely in our favor, but it's not the only one.
Projections of growth, stability of the government, stability of staff, these are all factors.
They help.
Yeah. On the 8 to 9 million that you're predicting, that covers exactly what? Like everything in the Christian's list, or what's generally that covers what?
I'll take that.
Okay, that's fine.
The 8 to 9 is going to be around 11, so it'll be 5 million this year, 6 million next year, with the idea that we move forward with the Little School Road project, with obviously partnering with Tarrant County and North Texas Central or Council of Governments.
Yes.
As we continue to move forward with negotiations with all parties involved.
And that looks great. That's what I want to make sure. I want to get some of these, and you and I have talked about one big, one small road or sewers or whatever moving forward. I want to continue that path, but I don't want to cut our legs out from underneath us when we know we have that bridge project, which is the biggest deal that we need to do.
Yeah, I'm in pretty good discussions with Precinct 2, Tarrant County Precinct 2. So we are moving forward with that. However, we do have a couple of hiccups dealing with Tarrant County and the railroad. So once we get that smoothed out to know exactly where we're at with the railroad, we'll definitely be able to move forward and hopefully be able to move forward with the project as a whole. Or if it goes to a total different way, the whole thing may be scratched. Obviously, the railroad is the one that's making that decision if we build a bridge or a crossing, period. At this point, we're not sure what the answer is. So my discussions that I've had for the last year and a half, 2 years, is the railroad, Union Pacific, is ready to move forward with the project.
Yeah.
However, in the last week, Tarrant County has learned something other than that. At this point, I don't have an update to really share to where we're at with it. But once Tarrant County gets back, we'll know exactly where we're set with Union Pacific.
So in essence, have everybody still call and complain to the railroad every time their train stops over there?
If they have a complaint, I suggest them contact them.
Thank you.
But to the point with John, we're looking at 11 million to match the Tarrant County transportation bond.
Okay.
That's the intent of it.
Just the final pieces of the puzzle, basically. Is what
It
you're-
is.
All right.
Without the funding, obviously, we can't move forward. It's that simple, and we will have to showcase that we can do that. So the process has started now, and obviously, we've already been in contact to make sure we're able to afford that move. Currently, as the numbers are setting, we can move forward with it. With the idea in 2027, we do have other debt that will be falling off. Obviously, as we presented tonight, we also need a ladder truck. So obviously, that's 2.1. There's several options that we have, but with our communications with our consultant is still ongoing. But I truly believe that we'll be able to work and get both of them taken care of.
And that's all I wanted to ensure that, we're moving forward and not having to pause or kick the can down the field again like we have in the past.
Well, obviously, like Christian has presented tonight, we have a lot of projects, and it's projects that we have to address. However, we can't go out and get $100 million in debt to correct all of them at once. But we can take bites at a time, and currently that's our plan to be able to do so. But some of them do have more priority than others, but we're going to get them done.
And I do think it's worth at least starting to have the conversation about being independent, about doing our own road work. Especially, again, not right away, not in 5 years, but we should start that process because we are growing and we do have a lot of streets that are in great condition that are going to get poor, before I pass away. So maybe it's time to start having that conversation in the future, being a little bit more independent with things like that.
I totally agree with that. With that, just obviously just to get set, just to have the equipment to move forward with something similar to that, we're looking at a minimum $2 to $3 million just to have the equipment, not even including the personnel to be able to do it. But it would be a slow process as the city continues to develop. Obviously, it gives us more opportunity to plan for that. And it overall, long-term, it does benefit from us. And that means we have to start somewhere, and that means we have to plan. And we are.
That's good. That's good.
Just one more question for Dr. Horton. So we still have about 42 million in outstanding debt currently. Is that accurate?
Sounds right.
Sounds right. So about 13 million, give or take, in revenue. So we're at 3 and change, 3.3 to 1 debt to revenue at the moment. And then we're projecting issuing 8 million in new debt or 11 million in new debt. I was unclear on that.
Sounds like 11, but we would be doing it in 2 different time
Years.
periods. Yeah, so it'd be, instead of doing 8 to 9 up front, we'd be doing 11 total, but 5 and 6.
Okay.
Right now, the schedule for the Little School Road project is to be completed in 2028. So with that, obviously, we can issue the debt as we go, but as we're going, obviously, we're getting revenue coming back from Tarrant County matching that grant or matching the funding for it. We have 11, Tarrant County right now it's allocated for 11. If the sublet realignment is moved to the Little School Road project. So there's still a lot of moving factors that go in, but as we're looking for the next 2 years to be issuing the 11 million.
Okay. And then Mr. City Manager, you made a comment around high priorities. I would say maybe on the next pass of this, if we can add a priority field, I know it's important, but if everything's a high priority, nothing's a high priority, kind of that thing. So if we can have the staff kind of indicate criticality, or, very high versus high, and then at least we kind of know where to.
Yeah,
if we
you'll
can
have
look.
a very defined priority come on June the 17th.
Okay, thank you.
And John, can you repeat what you said just a moment?
Yes, ARPA funding, we have it allocated, and we had to have it allocated by 12/31, like last December. We've allocated it for both of these projects, but we have to have it spent by 12/31/2026.
Just spend it. Just get it
That
out
has
of
to
our
be
coffers.
spent out, yeah. Or we have to give it back, and I would rather us spend it.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I'm with
we've
you.
already allocated it for the water projects, though, so we're pretty inflexible on that. But we do need to have it, the project doesn't have to be complete, but the money has to be spent.
That's what I want to clarify. Thank you.
Ideally, both of those will be following the same path, but we know that could.
I don't want to lose free money. And that's just ingrained in my DNA.
Okay, we'll do our best.
Does anybody else have anything? Then I will ask for everybody's favorite motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to dismiss.
I second.
All right. It is 7:54 PM. The meeting is adjourned.